The notion of Jesus curing the sick and the disabled and the dying is inherent in Christian theology. But the concept of disability as a weakness has been challenged in recent years by those with disabilities. Now, the idea of being blind is terrifying to those who have always been able to see and find that vision disappearing. If we could not see, how can we navigate this world? We could not drive or ride a bike. We would need to walk or be driven by someone else everywhere. We would get lost easier, wandering into unknown surroundings. We could not read or write. We would be shut off. Same thing with hearing loss. For those of us with hearing, the thought of losing it is terrifying. We could not hear sirens or alarms. We could not understand what others are trying to say to us. A familiar world would suddenly be dangerous. Same thing with mobility issues. If I could not use my legs, I could not get up and down all the steps in the sanctuary. I could not drive. I could not walk through tunnels or into buildings without elevators or ramps. But people are born each day with these disabilities. On the one hand, the community as a whole rejects terms like differently abled or handy-capable as erasing their lived experience in a world not built for them. On the other hand, they do tend to embrace the culture and community that has been created by people with disabilities supporting one another. While hearing parents of children who are born without the ability to hear often turn to cochlear implants right away for those born to parents who have little or no hearing themselves, they are more likely to view such implants with skepticism. There is an understanding that they would make it easier to navigate this world, but also that it would cut their children off from them and likely lead to less fluency in sign language. And other people with disabilities similarly look upon certain personal accommodations, and especially those that require surgeries, with skepticism and disdain. These are ways that able-bodied people are trying to fix those with disabilities, rather than recognizing that this world is built with artificial barriers for everyone. And it is our infrastructure, not the people, that needs to be fixed. At the same time, many people living with disabilities are also living with chronic pain, and not being in pain would come as a relief. When we read today's gospel from the perspective of people with disabilities, it becomes troublesome. It seems from the context of the gospel that the man being given sight wanted to see and was unable to navigate his world well without this ability. But we also know that, historically, there were those who thrived in the ancient world without sight, but that they were born into wealth, power, and privilege. And I think that is what this gospel is truly about. Not so much whether curing people of blindness or deafness or muteness is an objective good, or even the idea of using someone's disability as a metaphor for the lack of understanding of others, but rather it is about the failings of our society that make differences into disabilities. Again, very few people want to live in pain, and the curing of that pain is a miracle. But much of what makes disabilities into disabilities are not the inherent differences, but how society responds to these differences, and the willingness to modify designs, construction, and attitudes to embrace all peoples and all abilities. And this is supported by the conversation with the Pharisees, who seemingly took part in the driving of the man from the synagogue. While using the metaphor of blindness is something that should be rejected, there is an issue that it speaks to, one that is not limited to individuals, but is societal. We tend to accept the world as it is and see the barriers we have created as just being the natural way of things. And when someone challenges social inequities, whether through actions or through their advocacy, we tend to dismiss them or drive them away because it may mean that we might have to give something up, or that our privilege may become less valuable. We might need to work a little bit harder to achieve what was given to us before. This unearned superiority that we had before is challenged, and it is scary. Blaming another's misfortune on their lack of hard work or moral failings is easier than seeing them as fellow children of God, that society has placed unfair burdens upon. And this is the point of today's gospel. Amen.